Well, the hybrid approach to technology is where you're looking at the people element and you're looking at the technology element at the same time. So it's not like you do one, then the other. So you're looking at what you want to implement technology for, and then you're talking to the people, getting their feedback on how it's going to benefit them, and then you ask them, well, how would you actually use it? What would be beneficial to you? And then you look and see if the technology can then match with how they're envisioning using it, and then you just kind of ping pong, back and forth on that until you come up with basically the pilot or the plan or the prototype that you want to do it with. So, Marion, do you want to comment on?
Yeah, the hybrid approach helps you select the appropriate vendor, at the end of the day that you want to utilize as well.
Or vendors. It could be multiple pieces of technology.
It could be multiple
it doesn't
pieces
have
of
to
technologies, right? Because you want to have the data internally to help you make that selection on who you're going to use. Otherwise, you end up with technology in your place that goes to, what do we call it, purgatory?
Technology purgatory, yeah.
Because
that's
you
where
never use it because you
it.
ended up buying the wrong thing because you didn't have an inclusive discussion with everyone that was going to be utilizing it.
And I think one of the biggest things that the hybrid approach pulls out is that if you don't have the data, well then you need to know that.
Yes.
Because if you don't have the data, well then you need to go back and collect the data to then support what other kind of data you need to collect. And you're only going to get that through conversations. You're going to get that through people. The technology is not going to come in and you hit a button and it says you need X. There really is no wrong person to have at the table as long as they're involved in the process. You're not going to pull the accounting guy in to talk about whether you should have a certain type of mold or whatever going into your machine.
Yeah.
However, if you are on the production floor, there really isn't anybody that you can't include in the discussion, because sometimes people unrelated from the task see the best. You never know. Might be a forklift guy or a warehouse guy goes, yeah, I noticed that the machine's always making a noise when it's 75 degrees.
The one experiencing the pain.
Nobody, the other person might be too close to it. There might be somebody else in the plant that's going, I've been telling them that, this is this and this is that, and they don't listen to me because I'm in quality, and that's a production issue, and they tell me to stay out of my own way. And it's like, no, you guys are all a team. I guess that's the important part, is that the hybrid approach requires teamwork.
What we look for is that vibe, the energy that's on the plant floor. People are communicating, they're problem solving, they're talking to one another, they're using data to make a data decision, but in really just seeing, you got to see more than that, and that's where you look for the evidence.
Well,
right?
And then we also say, okay, show us what you're currently doing.
Right.
What are your current systems for tracking X, Y, and Z? One of the big ones would be downtime. And don't be afraid. We're not here to criticize you. We're not here to be critical of where it works or where it doesn't work. Just show us what you're doing now, so that we can bring our expertise to the table to say, okay, that's great. Now here's how we can improve upon it. And really start that communication.
Sometimes it's just observation. You can feel it, right? Or the guy will tell you, hey, listen, I've been having this issue with this, or he'll share something. But at the end of the day, it's really about how did you get there?
Yeah, okay, so you've got two camps.
Yeah.
The first camp is they're really happy to see you, and they want to talk. And so the conversation just kind of flows. They tell us your pain points. We sometimes have to pull it out of them, and we have a nice conversation. And then the other camp is, we don't need you, we don't want you to be here, but my owner made me come to show up, and we sit in a meeting and everybody's like this. And then we have to okay, so tell us about this, tell us about that. And then we have to kind of work our way into
the conversation.
The conversation that exposes the pain points. And really, when we have maximum this, well, they won't even open the door. They won't even let us in. I think we talked about this in our last chat interview type. Is that one of the things that people need to understand about AI is that it's not sentient. So what does that mean? Sentient means it's not alive. It only relies on the data that you feed it. It's not going to come in and go, oh my gosh, that's a pretty dress.
Make a change. Yeah.
No, because it has no basis or framework or
Yet.
Well, you know, that's where we're going to start getting into a conversation of what is data. But
Yeah.
we'll leave that for a separate time.
Yeah.
But it's not sentient. It's not going to come up with insights or intuitions that is outside of the data that you feed it.
Yeah.
And so we're always going to need people. We're always going to have processes that involve people. And that's where the people should be more open to being able to use AI as a tool and not as something that's going to be a threat.
Yeah, for right now, they're all living off of perception of AI, right? They're all living off of what they've heard from their colleagues, what they've seen on television. They haven't really quite experienced it yet because they're not really utilizing it. They might be doing Chat GPT or maybe a little Gemini, you know, but that's really to the extent of it. What we're talking about is really incorporating it and integrating it into your work processes, right?
Yeah, and
to
all
address
and all
an
we're
area.
looking for is for somebody to even take kind of a, you know, a very firm stance and say, okay, Mr. Expert, Miss Expert, tell me how you think AI could help us.
Correct.
We would love that. We would love to come in and be able to say, okay, here's where we think it could benefit you, here's where your steps are.
Right.
But they don't even want to have the conversation. There definitely needs to be a champion for it. The question is how high up in the chain is that champion, you know, so they don't walk in the next day and find their parking spot given to somebody else, you know?
Well, and the champion has to be knowledgeable, right? The champion has to be knowledgeable about the AI and what it can do and be able to articulate it.
I'm gonna you know, take a little bit of issue with you on that.
Okay,
I'm gonna say it's more generational. That person has to be open to the conversation about knowing what they don't know. Yet they're of the generation where, you know, they're living their life on their phone and the internet and technology is not scary to them. Versus if you're looking for somebody to be a champion that's a Gen Xer or a boomer, you know, they're, oh yeah, I don't know about that. You know, yeah, very.
That might be
that might be a little bit of a stretch.
That might be a stretch right there.
You know, so if you're looking at the owner and he's like upwards of 65 or 70, it's going to be a little bit hard for him to be the champion.
Yeah, because he hasn't even done succession planning. He hasn't even thought about what he wants to do with his business. He's just in the mode of generating revenue, running it the same way, everything's fine. It's worked as well this long.
Right.
Don't break it.
He understands that the people that he's been hiring have been younger than him.
Yeah.
And that's probably been that way for a very long time.
Yeah.
And so as long as he's hired some people that are open to that conversation, that's a great place to start. We're not asking for anybody to, you know, re-engineer their entire operation just because AI exists.
No.
We're not looking for anybody to do that. What we're looking for is for people to have a conversation honestly about what it is, what it can do for them, and then they always have the option to say no. Always. And they need to remember that.
But you got to start somewhere.
But you got to start somewhere.
But you got to start somewhere.
Well, first thing we got to do is you got to evaluate.
Yeah.
You know?
You got to do the culture assessment first. You got to understand the camp of people that you're going to be dealing with. You have to have everybody at the table. You know, you got to talk about where's the biggest pain point that we're experiencing right now.
And all this can be done, and you make it sound bigger than it is, but all this can be done in a day. Well, the first thing we do is we come in and we say, well, show us your KPIs.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the conversation, because at this point, and in this day and age, everybody understands what that is, and very few people don't have them. And if they don't have them, at least they know what they are. And they go, you know, we've been having a little bit of trouble trying to establish what our baseline measurements should be that everyone understands.
Right.
And then that's when we come in and we say, okay, well, here's 4 or 5 key indicators that you can use. They're not very difficult to track. They're not very difficult to create. And that's a great starting point for them. And then you've started the conversation.
Yeah, and you don't want to make it such an arduous process that they fall out of love with it, right? You got to have a quick win. You got to have something that they can go in, the low-hanging fruit, attack that, get some results, cheer everybody on.
Yeah, well, most owners in this day and age have, you know, a incredibly shortening attention span. They want to get to the point. What's it going to cost me? How long is it going to take?
Yep.
How much pain am I going to get?
Yep.
And you need to address, that's why you start small. That's
Yeah.
why you start small, because anything that's big, there's going to have an implication that if it fails, it'll fail big. And so you don't want that. You want a leveraged risk reward. So we go, okay, what's your biggest pain point, or what are your two biggest pain points? And we kind of collect that information from all the various parties, and then we look at the owner and we go, okay, great. Now, if you were to apply X amount of money and X amount of time and resources to this, would it be worth it?
Yes, and that's the decision they have to make.
Well, you have to do a trust analysis survey. So you have to say, okay, here's the data you're currently collecting. How much do you trust it? Because if they're not using it, it's because they don't trust it. They're not using it. They go, oh, well, that's great data, but I just don't use it. Well, why not? Well, I don't know. It's great data, but I don't know. If it's not great, or it's great, if they don't think it's great, they're not going to use it. If they don't trust it, they're not going to use it.
And that's where the alignment part comes in, right? Because if you've got one department over here and another department over here and another department over here, and they're all collecting different data, but they're not talking to each other, that's going to say something about the culture.
And that brings up the point that you brought up, which was communication architecture, language, plant language. How do you get people talking the same language? And that's really where management has to come into play.
Yeah.
Management has to say, okay, we're going to track efficiency, and this is the formula that we're going to use to track efficiency amongst all of our lines or all of our machines. Or if you have different machine types, you can say, well, this type of machine is going to use this formula, this type of machine is going to use this formula, and we're going to modify things so it all comes out even.
Yeah,
so,
common language, and it starts with leadership. Because leadership has to ultimately be transparent to the whole organization. Why are we thinking about AI? Why are we considering doing it?
The base structure for all manufacturing has to do with the KPIs that are set by management.
Yeah.
The frontline people are not setting KPIs. Okay?
They're living them, but they're not.
They're living them. They're contributing to them, but they're not setting them. It's really management and the ownership that has to track the KPIs, and then those KPIs break down to sub KPIs, and those sub KPIs break down to sub KPIs.
Yeah.
And every time I say that, it's data. But think about it. If I'm the owner of a company and I look at my financials, I want to know what my bottom line is. Do we make money or lose money? I don't really care if the guy, we owe him some money from 3 months ago and we haven't paid him yet. I don't care about that. That's accounting's problem. That's not my problem.
No.
Cash flow and things of that. That's other people's problem. So think of that financial hierarchy in your accounting system, your GL tracking and your ledger. Well, you need the same equivalent for your manufacturing floor with all of the KPIs and the data. What can AI do on that? AI can either provide insights that you wouldn't normally see because you don't have the time, or it can accelerate the process that you normally go through. Oh yeah, it takes us 3 days to normally do this analysis, and it's great because it sets it up for next week. And I say, great, how about if you could have that in an hour?
But
and
AI can also expose where the problem areas are too.
Oh yeah.
And that's the part that most people don't want to hear about, right? Because they don't want to know how bad is bad, right? And the one thing that AI is not going to do is not going to really lie to you. It's going to tell you what it's seeing, right?
Well, it's hard to get mad at a system or a computer or AI. It's really hard, but it's easy to get mad at a person.
Yeah.
I think if I say, I collected this data and I put it in a spreadsheet and it says this, they go, Vince, you don't know what you're talking about.
So that's where the debate comes.
Yeah.
That's where the debate comes, right? How bad is it going to reveal so much about my department that I'm going to have to do something about it? Because remember, I've been laying back in the cut for a long time and living with all of this, right? And now you've got a tool that's going to expose me. Oh my God, I'm not sure I'm going to be happy about that. They have to assess the organization. They have to. They have to get clarity around, are we ready or are we not? And really have the courage to be honest with themselves.
You need to get the internal people all on the same page, and you are going to need some external expertise to kind of help guide you through the process. It's very hard to do it on your own because most people don't have the budget to have a built-out IT department that can then support all of that.
Yeah.
But if you do it all externally, it might get too cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
You know, you may not have the budget or the resources to be able to say, well, I can't spend that amount of money to get this amount of return. So really you need to do both. So there's really no wrong place to start. The only wrong thing to do is to not start. Which is why you're saying people are feeling pressure.
which is really what's important right now, because to do nothing, you're doing something. And that is what is so weird about AI.
And I'll give you a little bit of a lead in, is that they can start with what we call narrow AI, which is AI in certain spots and in certain areas where they're not worried about, you know, they're not worried about Skynet coming in and taking control of the whole plant, okay? So we come in and we say, okay, here is an area of the plant that we know is a bottleneck, and if we were to collect reams of data and then throw that at AI and say, please help us solve this problem, that would be an excellent application. And then what you do is you piece together a bunch of little narrow AIs, and then from that you can build a bigger AI infrastructure, and it just kind of grows from there. It's not like this wide sweeping, everybody thinks of, you know, this huge computer brain that's just going to come in and tell everybody. It's not that.
It's starting small, getting some wins, celebrating those wins, and then moving on to adding some more and adding some. It's an iterative process. It's not just a slam dunk.
And then that way, when they get a little bit of a taste of what it can do for them,
they lose
they lose the fear, the courage comes up, and then when people say, hey, are you using AI, they can say, yeah, great. Oh yeah, we're using it. We're using it in a narrow capacity to try to do this and do this, and it's worked out great for us. And we're going to build on that as we go through.
But the bottom line, remember this: you can't AI a culture.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up.
So it's really important to understand that there is no escaping. It's inevitable. It is here. It's not going away. Start talking to your people about AI now.
Yeah, and gather the feedback, and whether you need external resources or whether you want to start that conversation internally before you bring in external resources, great. Doesn't matter. But start the conversation now.